Is it possible to finish off, to clear out our Kamma? The heaps and heaps and heaps, mountains of kammic results, the consequences of actions that we have accumulated over countless lifetimes. Is it possible for them to be erased, to be finished, for us to do things and to behave in certain ways, to make them, to continue the deduction process, to subtract, to erase? Is it possible? The short answer is no. In the traditional sense, that is. So there's a caveat, there's a fine print somewhere. And what do I mean by that? To hope that you can do good deeds, enough so that you can counteract, enough so that you can cancel out, and one day bring to, let's say, a zero, the infinite bundle of heaps of, mountains of Kamma that we have done. That is impossible. However, to stop Kamma, to end rather Kamma once and for all, that is possible. The Buddha teaches us that. All of the Arahants, all of the awakened disciples of the Buddha have proven that. One of the most notable examples was Venerable Angulimala, who had killed in that his very last lifetime nearly 1,000 people. So he was the serial killer in India at the time. He was misled by his teacher, who had convinced him that in order for him to finish his last lesson, this is basically his way to graduate from his training. This is before he came to the Buddha, that is. He had to kill 1,000 people and bring their fingers to him as a necklace, as a proof that he had done so. So I've recounted the story many, many times, but when he came to the Buddha with the intention of killing him, he was startled, he was brought to reality, he was struck down in his ignorance with the wisdom and compassion of the Buddha, to the point where he gave up all his weapons, all his way of life, and he became a Bhikkhu, a monk. At that moment, before asking for ordination, he attained to the first stage of awakening. Now, does that mean that just talking about that lifetime, the 1,000 people almost that he had killed? By the way, the 1,000th victim was going to be his mom, his mother, who had come to the jungle to save her son because the king and his armies were coming to get him once and for all to finish the job, because he had been responsible for the deaths of countless people, 999. But he did not hesitate to even kill his own mother. That's why the Buddha intervened, and he physically showed up, came between him, Angulimala, and his mother. So Angulimala then used the Buddha as his target. but he wasn't able to kill him. He kept running after the Buddha, and the Buddha kept walking. Angulimala ran after him with the sword unsheathed, raging mad, attacking. He couldn't reach him. But anyhow, that's the point that I'm trying to make here is somebody like that, who eventually became an arahant in that very lifetime as a bhikkhu, which means the fourth stage, awakened one, an arahant, fully awakened, he still would come back to the monastery from his alms round, from having collected his food, or whatever he could collect, that is, bloodied, scarred, bruised. Why? Because the people would recognize him, and they would still, many of their loved ones had been killed at his hands by this person who, well, in the past, now he's not a killer, he's not a murderer. But their pain, their grief, their anger, their rage did not stop them from exercising that rage, bringing it upon him. Now, we have in the discourses, in the suttas, where the Buddha sees one day, one of those days, where Angulimala returns back to the monastery all bloodied, and his bowl, his clay bowl, was cracked, was broken. And he was barely able to walk in. He was limping. People had beaten him up in the village. Seeing all that, the Buddha said, "Bear it, Brahmin, because if you had not attained to arahantship, it would have been impossible to imagine the kind of pain you had to undergo, not just in this life, but in many other lifetimes." But the moment the arahant closes their eyes for the last time, the thread is cut. There is no more possibility for the kammic results to find ground for them to manifest. That's why Nibbana is another name for Nibbana is extinction. There is no more existing for the Arahant in any realm, any form, any shape imaginable. It's done. When there is no existence, there is no Kamma. Can you get that? Can you process that? When there is no longer any becoming into any state of being, any realm whatsoever, that means Kamma can still, the effects of it, reach us. And they will. Not can. It's not a question. It will. It's just a matter of time. So the Arahant ends it all. And the Buddha warned us, saying how we have committed more evil actions than good. Just if we take that and look at it carefully, what that means. No matter how many good deeds you think you do or have done, and there's plenty of proof of it, and that only relates to this life, by the way, whatever you could remember, or people could attest to, that's incredibly minuscule compared to the oceans of bad deeds we have done. So please bear that in mind. That's what this awakening is all about. It's not a mystical state or a trance-like state where we go and crawl into and we just feel great. So long as the Arahant, that has to also be said, so long as the Arahant is still alive, they are still susceptible to face their past karmic results. Even the Buddha had to face his. The Buddha had terrible backache in his elder years. From which he suffered a lot. You see this in the suttas where he has to lean back, he has to lay down, he has to take a breather from teaching, from instructing. That was not because he had done something in this life, in his last life that is, but in eons earlier, he had done some deeds where it was catching up. Now remember, this is the Buddha, okay? This shatters people's opinions about the Buddha being like, so incredibly untouchable, this and that. We remove the humanity out. We remove even Kamma. No, so long as the Buddha is alive, even the Buddha is alive, so long as that is the case, he is still susceptible to the effects of Kamma. But the moment the Arahant, the Buddha was an Arahant as well, the moment the Arahant closes his eyes for the last time, that's it. There's no more Kamma to be had, because there is no becoming, there is no desire for a re-becoming, there is no craving, there is no tanha, the thirst, and its constant quest for more, to experience more, that is gone. It's extinct in the Arahant. So that is the good news. That's why I said, yes, you can, but depends. The other factor then remains, which is Kamma remains, so long as you remain. In one form or another, in one form of existence or another, Kamma is there for you. You will still get the bill wherever you end up, as well as the royalty checks or the bonuses that come in. What I mean by that is this. The actions we have committed, they don't just stay within the bounds of the life within which we have committed those actions. This is one of the biggest delusions, that people want to accept Kamma on their own terms, what works for them. There is the delusion that many people who are in power entertain or believe. This is a terrible wrong belief, wrong view on their part. And that is, oh, I can get away with it. Nobody's able to touch me, to get to me. I'm aloof. Because there are some people who believe that, yeah, there is Kamma, but so long as you're playing your cards right, it doesn't get to you. And get to you as in, if you don't get the results of it catching up to you by the time you're breathing your last breath, then you're scot-free, you're okay. This is the delusion. And these are also the nihilists or annihilationists, or those who don't believe in some type of a soul. They think this is it, this is the only life, so you come in, max it out, enjoy every minute of it, take all advantages as you can, lie, cheat, kill, steal, which we see today in the world, clearly. And no matter what, if you're involved with the right people, nobody's going to touch you. And at the end, yeah, you're going to die. But that's it, you're gone, you're fine. We don't care what happens afterwards, because there's nothing afterwards, they believe. But that's the only way they can justify their inhumane, their vicious, barbaric actions. In the world we see this. We have always seen this throughout history. Today it's the Israelis killing, pillaging, destroying, robbing people's homes in another country. They feel like they own it, they're entitled to it. They're killing children and they're flaunting it for the whole world to see. And the world is unable to do anything, it seems. And these are, you look at them, you look in their eyes, you look at how they're joyful as they're saying, yes, I kill children. An adult person, man, woman, doesn't matter for them. That's complete delusion, though. That's insanity. But at the same time, they also apparently, supposedly, have loved ones. As though that actually works. It doesn't, because this person is a psychotic individual. Because on one end, they're killing, destroying. So what allows a person to do that? Their inner narrative has to be completely lopsided. This is why having right view is extremely important. And part of right view is also to consider the fact that there are consequences to our actions. For most of us, most sane, reasonable, rational people, that makes total sense. But for those who are in power, throughout history, they have to justify that by saying, no, there's no such thing. I can just do whatever I want. Well, the problem is also something that is not often mentioned, which I'll take the opportunity to say a few words on today, is that if and when your actions, and when we mean actions, they have to be intentionally done actions. And in Buddhism, we have three aspects or three layers of actions. They are mental actions, verbal actions, meaning speech and communication, and thirdly, physical, bodily actions. So the mental action is extremely important because that is what starts the whole mechanism, right? So even if you are, let's say, starting something, if you are responsible for putting into place an organization that is designed to harm people. People talk about the deep state now, right? Well, it's been in existence for a few centuries at least. And they've been responsible for most of the wars during the last 300-400 years, but especially the last 150 years. All of those originators of, let's say, the deep state, whatever that is, however you want to characterize it, but we all know it exists, given the hypocrisies and the double standards and the cognitive dissonance that they're trying to create with the gaslighting strategies, all that. They're doing one thing over here while saying something else, and the whole world is in confusion, including those people who are present today, as well as the founders of such movements, especially the founders who are long dead and gone. They still will get the brunt of it. Even though they've been dead for 100 years, they're probably in another form. They're maybe an animal, but usually if they're that bad, that evil, they're still stuck in hell realms. And they're going to be there for a long, long while. The intensity of the negative actions that their efforts while alive had created, even though They are not physically responsible for it now, but they're the ones who started the wheel turning. They're the ones who put it into place. They still will have to have to answer for that. They will still, in this sense, be hit with the impact of these actions. We have to acknowledge this. We have to understand this. This is very important and very serious. And conversely, the good deeds that people have done by establishing, let's say, a person comes in and has some money and starts a foundation to really help, truly help, not as a cover like we have today in many cases, but to really, let's say, build a hospital when there's none. Pay the salaries for doctors to come in. Let's say it's a in the middle of nowhere type of environment, place, but there are people, communities that don't have any medical care. So it's a wonderful thing that a person could do, or some people could do, by putting their mental, verbal, and physical actions and resources in a certain direction that brings beautiful and favorably good results for many people that are alive, as well as for many people still to come in the future. So now when these people are long dead and gone, the impact of those actions that have produced this hospital and the benefits that come from that, the existence of the hospital and the care and all that people benefit from, the communities benefit from, the merits and the consequences, the good consequences of those actions that were done probably 100 years ago, 200 years ago, doesn't matter. They will still be reflected. They will still go and find the originators of these actions, the ones who have put it into place. So you see how wonderful it is? The Kamma that we talk about, that oftentimes we do not understand the nuances of it. So Kamma is not just punishment or, even a reward type of a thing that falls out of the sky. We are the authors of it. Another thing, nobody gets somebody else's Kamma. You cannot take another person's Kamma on your shoulders. It's impossible. Unfortunately, there have been religions that have pushed that idea, that wrong view, to their own detriment, but they will always remain wrong view, because nobody can take on the burden of someone else's kammic. In other words, kamma means action. So the consequences of those actions, which we call kamma vipaka, the fruits of it, of the actions. The Buddha could not take over his shoulders Angulimala's kamma. So I hope this helps to clarify some things. Of course, this is not in any way non-conclusive or in this case, it's exhaustive, rather, that's what I mean. Explanation of Kamma, because the Buddha, I think it was in the Book of the Fours of the Numerical Discourses, the Buddha says, there are these 4 things that drive a person crazy. One is to try to figure out the level of wisdom of a Buddha, the depth of wisdom that a Buddha has, or Tathagata has. That'll drive a person nuts, because literally they will go crazy to try to rationally think or reason out or analyze somehow. But the reason why I brought that in, mentioned it, that is, the Buddha says that the other reason why people can go crazy, become insane, is if they try to figure out Kamma, as in, what happened this, what happened there, what happened here, why is this happening, oh, it must have been this, or what are the connections, or it's like far, far, far more complex than any web you can ever think of. There cannot be any supercomputer capable enough to process that. But the mind of a Buddha can. So that's why the Buddha said oftentimes, it's so difficult, even to his fully awakened Arahant Bhikkhus, his students, don't try to figure out Kamma. Such as looking at a person and seeing what happened here, what happened there, what brought this about, in what lifetime, what happened, and as was it a ricocheting effect of what type of an effect happening over there? When you take into consideration the fact that we have lived incalculable lifetimes, it makes sense as to why the Buddha said that. However, the basic mechanisms we need to understand, which is, one of them is what I just shared, to look at the expansiveness, the far-reaching impact and influence of Kamma. So even though the person might, let's say, many lifetimes might end up coming back as a human, if they have. By the way, I mentioned about those people, those barbaric Israelis who are attacking Lebanon and are behind this whole thing in the Middle East now, unfortunately, and terrible situations that are happening in the world. To do those things, it means you have to break all 5 precepts, even if you don't take them. That is the basic structure, that is the basic formula to be born as a human. The minimum amount of, basically, the minimum requirements, shall we say, of being born as a human are those 5 precepts. Not to kill or harm beings intentionally, which they obviously have been doing for at least 80 years, since they went in and occupied Palestine. 2, taking what is not freely given to you, willingly, lovingly. They've been taking, they've been robbing, they've been taking, and now they're destroying people's lives. And the people, whoever is able to run away, this is in South Lebanon. They've been living there for thousands of years, by the way, the Lebanese. They're the Phoenicians, okay? Ancient civilization. So the homes that they left, the people, the belongings, now these soldiers, these so-called soldiers, I don't call them soldiers, they're just thugs and barbarians, marauding criminals, going in and stealing and robbing children's toys, television sets, computers, drapes, sofas, things like that. They're just pillaging. They're the real terrorists, criminals. It puts us, it's a very shameful moment for all of us to look at to other fellow human beings who are behaving worse than the hordes of Genghis Khan. The problem is that happened almost 1,000 years ago. We thought we were beyond it, we had evolved, but then look at us. And this is supposed to be so-called, they claim to be like a first world country. They are all technology, this and that, luxury, this. So they've been stealing. So that's the second precept that's broken. Third is not to engage in any sexual misconduct. They have been raping the Palestinian women and men. Not just them, but also the Lebanese. They've been doing that to the Lebanese public. And that's why there's this such a tremendous push against them. From around the world today, the jig is up. People see clearly. Fourth, not to lie. Notorious liars. And then not to take intoxicants. They're on drugs. You have to be on drugs to be able to do these atrocities. So these individuals will have to spend a long time before they get a chance to be reborn as a human being. Anybody, not just the Israelis, anybody around the world, anybody who engages in such behavior, any part of the world where they are doing this, a human being is doing this, you can kiss that human birth goodbye for a long time. You won't be able to see such a life, such a form, for yourself. You're going to be in the lower realms. Don't fool yourself. As well as those individuals who give power to these entities, to these beings, to these people to do these atrocities. They're the ones whose actions will stick to them like a shadow that never leaves until the weight, the heaviness of their karmic weight is diminished. And given what we see, it's not going to diminish anytime soon. It's going to be there for them to haul around for many, many lifetimes. And it will be a long time before any of these characters attains to human birth, which is a rare phenomenon. That's why it hurts to see human beings doing these things to other human beings. So deluded to think that they are above and superior to other humans. So utterly foolish to think, to teach your kids that you are superior to other human beings whom you call less than animals, or human animals. That's what they call us, anybody who's not of that area, not an Israeli or something like that. It's so sad, the delusion and what it's creating. Above all, the Kamma that they're bringing, the pain that one causes to someone else. Yes, it's terrible on the receiver's end, right? The receiver is going to be in pain. They're going to be hurt. They're going to be damaged. I was one of those who did get injured. I've said this in other discussions, other talks. I was in the ICU for almost a month. In Lebanon, I was one of those children. I was 8. When one of those bombs that they were tossing came and slammed against our balcony, and the shrapnel came in, cut open my head, my foot, a big chunk of my foot was gone. My family was spared. Slight scratches here and there, small shrapnel on my mom's foot and my dad's foot, but they were removed. They were able to walk almost immediately. But I couldn't. It was traumatizing for decades. I had to deal with PTSD. 8 years old. I was still one of the lucky ones, fortunate ones. Many families were wiped out, as we hear today, happening every day at the hands of these barbarians of modern day. So the Kamma that these people are creating, and those people who place them there in the middle of, the Middle East, all their founders are still, and they will continue to have to deal with their negative Kamma. they've done, until the heaviness of it goes away, diminishes. But so long as these individuals, they're several generations past, are doing this, they're still going to face the heavy, heavy karma that they put into place back in the 40s. This is one group that I'm addressing, using as an example. You have plethora of other places in the world that is happening. Not to this level, of course, and has been happening over the course of time. I'm just using this as an example, because everyone identifies this, everyone sees this for what it is. Everyone, the veils are off. People see the ugliness. People see the atrocities. And we know who are the culprits, who are the true criminals here. Not the ones that they kept telling the world. They themselves are the criminals. So, the impact will be carried on their burdens. They will kill, destroy, maim. But the one who is maimed is not the receiver of these atrocities, is not in danger in their next life, if they've been killed even. The person who's perpetrating is. And we don't know how many lifetimes. That's why it's such a terrible, terrible waste of human life to drop the 5 precepts, to not engage with nobility. It is not your birth that makes you special. It is not your birth or religion or some type of an ethnic, racial thing that makes you special and above everybody else. That is absolute rubbish, absolute insanity. Nobody's born noble or pure. Nobody. The Buddha clearly states this. In our path, in this tradition of Lord Buddhas, which we call Buddhism, it is one's own actions that purify oneself, not your birth. The Buddha did not become pure because of his lineage as a crown prince. No, the Buddha became pure because of his actions, because of his choices. No birth makes one special. Sukhi Hota.